Hi, so in this video I thought I would share my experience learning how to use the terminal, and essentially, like, I haven't really made any beginner videos on this channel yet, but I guess this is gonna be the first one. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because basically, if I look back at my own experience learning the terminal, when I first opened it and started doing things there, kind of what kind of mistakes I made and stuff like that, I thought that like a lot of that information would be helpful to other beginners, and hopefully some things that I share here will help them avoid the same mistakes that I made, and which can potentially result in bad consequences, even though you shouldn't fear the terminal, but you can mess things up there, which you're probably already aware of, but it's worth kind of reminding yourself that you should be careful with the terminal and know what it is that you're typing, what that command is going to do, etc. So let's basically go ahead and jump right in, and I'll start talking about a few things. Essentially, one of the first operations that you learn in the terminal is how to copy and move, copy, and delete files, etc. So let's talk about that, because a lot of things can go, not a lot, but some things can go in unexpected ways there, and I wanted to highlight those for you here. So I'll just create a test directory so that I don't mess anything up. I'm gonna change to that directory, and I'm gonna just like do all this stuff in there. I'm gonna talk about basically, let's start out with two commands, with mv and cp, so for move and copy. By default, if you don't specify it, these commands can overwrite files. Basically, let's say I have, I'm going to create some test files here. Let's just call it file 1 and file 2. I don't know, let's just keep it simple. So now I have two files in this folder. And let's say I wanted to rename file 1, and so in order to rename a file, you use the move command mv, and I can start typing file 1, and let's say I forgot that there was file 2 there, and so if I run this, you can see that now that there's only file 2 there. The reason for that is because file 1 was renamed to file 2 and it overwrote the file. So that's one way is that you can mess up and delete some things accidentally, or overwrite some things accidentally. So make sure to be aware of this. So now, how do you avoid this this thing? So let's create put back like both of those files. So now there's two files again. Basically, mv command has some options, and you'll probably already know this, but to view them, like to know what options the command has, you need to look at the manual. You do that by typing man and then the name of the command. So man mv gives you access to the manual. There's a lot of things in there, and for beginners this might be a little bit just like plain incomprehensible sometimes. You just have very hard to find your way around the manuals, but rest assured that with time all of this will be very transparent to you. Essentially what we need to take a look at here is these two options, I and N. So I can will basically, before overwriting, it will prompt you if you really want to overwrite. So mvi file 1, file 2, and now if I press enter, it will ask me overwrite file 2, or like if that's a file that I want to keep, and it's like, oops, no, you just type N and then it cancels it. and so nothing happened. If I wanted to say yes, I would type Y and then it would do the thing. So that's one way to avoid it. I'll also going to show you how you can set up an alias so that it does one of these things automatically. You can like set default options with aliases, but let's just kind of understand first how these options work and what they do. So I'm gonna recreate the files again, and now let's take a look at the N, or no-clobber. Clobber, by the way, is also like a word that is useful to know about. It just simply means overwrite, basically. You'll come across that word pretty often when reading the manuals and stuff like that. It'll come up again in this tutorial later when I'm going to be discussing something else. But let's take a look at this N option. So -N simply will not overwrite if there's already an existing file there, and it won't say anything. But basically what happened now is nothing, because there was already file 2. Now let's see. So there's also another option that is worth knowing about, and that's a verbose flag. It's called verbose or -V for short. Here it is. Explain what is being done, and that's useful to use as well, because let's say if I run this, then it will show you what it does. Rename file 1 to file 2. Now you know why you see what you see, right? It's clear this way. Over time, you'll just kind of understand what is happening, and you won't probably need to use verbose as much, but sometimes it's useful to see things like this anyway on the screen indirectly. So let's put the files back again. So with the verbose flag, you can also, if you use the N together with the verbose flag, it will actually not print anything out, and that's how you can tell that nothing happened, because there was no message. Otherwise it would say that it did something, because with the verbose flag it always tells you if it performs some action. With the interactive flag, you can also use that, or sorry, it was IN, should be IV. That's what I meant to do. So if I do this, it will ask, and like if I say yes, or like let's say I know, it doesn't print anything. If I say yes, it will print the message renamed file 1 to file 2. So this is for the move command. For the copy command, these flags are exactly the same. So you can also use -I, -N, and -V with the copy command. So I'm not going to explain it all over again, because it's exactly the same. So this is really important to know about when working with the move and copy command, so that you don't, like while you are trying to rename a file, don't accidentally overwrite something. Now I said that I will show you how you can make these things by be a default, and basically you can create aliases. In order to create an alias that is permanent, and that works every time you open the terminal, is there just by default, you need to add it to your bash rc. I'm on Debian Linux, and this file actually comes with the system, so there's a lot of things in here already. If you are on Debian, or probably like some other Linux distribution, you also might have like some default shell configuration. So you might not just have an empty file, but already something there for you to start working with. So you can add aliases here, or like on Debian, there's actually another file that they kind of have by default, that's called bash aliases. You can see that this part basically reads the file bash aliases, and you can put your aliases there basically because there's already a file for that. But so the way you create an alias is simply you use the command alias, and then you can type mv equals, and then in quotes you go mv, and then you put your default options. Let's say I always wanted it to be interactive and verbose, so that it always asks me if it overwrites something, and it always tells me what it does. Now, like if now I press enter, that alias now is set, but it will only be there for this terminal session. So once I close this window, it will disappear. But if you want to make it permanent, add it to one of these files, either bashrc, or if you're like on Debian, for example, where it has like this separate bash aliases file, you can add it there. But the surefire way is to just go with bashrc, basically. So yes, do that, and you will have that alias set permanently. But let me just show you that now that like I have not only file2 now. Let me put both of those back. So now I can just go mv file1 file2. Now if I press enter, I didn't pass any flags here, but it does ask me if I want to overwrite, and it prints the messages when it does something. So now there are defaults set there. So to view an alias, like you can also type just alias and then the name of the alias, and then press enter. It will print out the alias. This way you can check what it is that you have set there. So yes, and like I said, for the copy command, it's exactly the same. I can just go copy. I don't have the file there. Hold on a sec. So I could just go copy like v file1 to file2. Like if I do this, of course, since it's copied, the file1 is still there, but file2 actually was overwritten by the copy of file1. To make it super clear, I could open those files in a text editor, and like I can put just some text here. So like file1 and file2, save all of that stuff. So now if I use the cat command, for example, I can view the contents of file1. It's file1, file2 is file2. Now if I run that copy command, it actually overwrote file2. Now if I cat file2, it says file1, and file1 is also file1. So yes, but basically everything that I explained about the move command works for the copy command just the same. The interactive flag -i, the verbose flag -v, and the no-clobber flag -n. So these are very useful options to know about when working with those very basic commands that you use all the time. I personally got into a habit of always using basically verbose and n. Like whenever I almost always I use these things almost always. I don't personally have set aliases set, but I think it's a good idea to do because it's very easy to forget these things. And I remember that when I was starting out, like I did make some mistakes with those, and then I ended up overwriting something which I didn't mean to do, and so like that can be a real pain. So I would say creating an alias is a good idea, but you can also just get into a habit of using -vn, for example, like I do, or -vi if you prefer. That's another way, and that way you will, like, even if you feel you're sure, it's always good to do this, because in case you suddenly in case you think you know something but you really don't, then it might save you some trouble, because um, yeah, that can also happen, and it did happen to me. So it's like better safe than sorry. So it's always a good idea to use like an appropriate flag when you're copying or moving files, so that like it's like, oh, like I forgot there was another file there named like that, and that way you won't overwrite something that you didn't mean to. So there's another thing that you should be careful with when using the move and the copy command, and that is basically forgetting to put like when you moved files to a directory. Hold on, let me just create those files again, clear the screen, so we have these files here. Let's say I'll also create a subdirectory here. So I'll just call it dir. So now we have a directory. Here's a tree view. Okay, so like let's say I started to do something, and so I think, okay, like I'm gonna move the file 1 and file 2, and like, okay, I can use the star here to match both file 1 and file 2, which is perfectly correct. But then if you forget to put the target for whatever reason, it won't do that. It will just simply expand to mv file 1, file 2. And so that will result in the same overwriting. Well, I have the alias set there, so now it asks me. So this might also trip you up. So don't forget to put the target, and make sure you like that it's there if you're moving files to a folder. So this is what I actually meant to do. So this way everything it does what you want it to. So not forgetting the target is really important to know about as well. This can lead to basically one file overwriting another as well. Let's see. So now there's also another thing that can help you avoid making mistakes, or like when using history. Basically, when you press like up and down arrows, you can use the commands that you recently typed. But then sometimes if you have like some command there, let's say let me remove that directory. Let's say yeah, like file, I don't know, file 1, whatever, that's fine. So basically, sometimes if you're deleting files, let's say there's a file there and I want to delete it, and then I type rm file 1, and then I press enter, and everything goes well. By the way, rm also has the verbose flag, which can be helpful. Now I'm gonna say that it can't remove, but here, that's also useful to see what it does. But anyways, like you type something like this, and now you have rm-v file 1 in your history. And then let's say you go to some other folder where there's also file 1, and then you suddenly press something wrong, and like you go up in history, and then you accidentally press enter, and you might delete a file that way. So it's best not to actually have these commands in your history when there's like a destructive action that might potentially result from accidentally running that command. So in order to avoid adding a command into history, you can actually, there's like a way to do that. So I'll open my bashrc file again, because on Debian it's actually enabled by default, I believe. Yeah, it says it has this comment here, don't put duplicate lines or lines starting with a space in the history. And basically this is what was there by default. Hist control equals ignore both, and I added this later. But if you add this to your bash rc, if it's not already there, hist control equals ignore both. You can add a space to any command, and basically then it won't be recorded in history. So that's a very good way to just avoid accidentally running something that you have saved in your history that might just cause some problems. For example, let's say I already have rm file 1 in history, but let me create like file 2, for example. So like if now I know that, okay, I want to delete it, but it's not a good idea to save it in the history, so I can just press space at least once. Can be like as many spaces as you want, but at least once, and then go rm v file 2. It will do the rm, but now if I press up, I get ls, which was the command before the rm. So it did do the thing, but it wasn't saved in history. So that's very very useful to avoid running something from history that might delete files or do something else that you don't want. So just like, you know, if you have this command that you type in that might be sort of like dangerous if executed by accident, just don't put it in history. Just like prepend it with a space, and that is also a way to avoid making mistakes and deleting files by accident, etc. So now another thing that you can do to accidentally erasing something from a file is basically it has to do with using this format. So let's say echo test using redirection. So I can direct an output of any command by using this greater than sign, and then I can put it into a file. Let's say just call it file, whatever. So now I have a file there, and it has the content text which was printed out by this command. Can be any command. Basically, sometimes you also might by accident run something that will just like output to a file, and you forgot that file had some important content. So for example, maybe like let's just say another test, and I might forget that there's some important information in the file. Let's say that this test was something that I had to have. So if I like do this, it will just overwrite that with something else. So this is also like something that can happen, and you can erase information in this way. So there's actually an option to disable this to prevent this from happening. Basically, you need to use this command set and then -o and then no-clobber. So now if I set this and then I do yet another test, now it won't overwrite an existing file. It will say cannot overwrite existing file. So this can also save you some headache. When you use two greater than signs to append to a file, that won't work. So that will still append, but it will not basically erase the entire file. It will this set o no-clobber option will prevent this from happening, from overwriting the file entirely. So you can also add it to your bash rc if you prefer, or if you know that in this session you're going to be doing something like like this, then you might just want to set it and prevent that from happening. So one other thing that might be kind of might be somewhat unexpected and that can result in basically you erasing an entire file is you cannot read from a file and have the same command output to that file by using this redirection greater than sign. So let's see, so let me clear the screen. So here's what I have in the file called file right now. So if I did this, this will erase that entire file. So like if I run this, oh, like I have set no-clobber set. Let me disable that. I believe that is done like this. So now if I run this, yes. So this is how you disable the no-clobber. But right now, so I ran cat file and output to file. So you might think that, well, that just like read from the file, then the file must be the same. It must have just like read it from it and then put all the same content back. But that's actually not what happened. It actually erased the entire file and truncated it to 0. So it doesn't have any content anymore. So you can't do this, do things like this. You have to, if you need to like read from a file, this can be some other command. I just use cat here for demonstration, but maybe it's some editor or like some script that modifies the file, and then you want to like, and then that script maybe prints out what it modified back into the terminal, and then you think, well, I'll just like output it to that same place, but that will just like erase the entire thing. That's just how it works, and you can't do things like this. There's a utility called sponge in a package called more utils. So here's the manual for it if you're curious, but to install it, you'll need to install the more utils package. But basically, it's very important to be aware of this fact that you can't read from a file with the same command output to that same file. That will erase the entire thing. Now, I also wanted to mention something about the ln command, which creates links and which you're probably also going to be using quite a lot. Basically, there's something important to know about how it works that will help you avoid making mistakes. So let's take a look. So for this demonstration, I created these directories and files here. So we have a directory called dirs, which has some subdirectories numbered 1 to 5, and then we have some the files directory with the files numbered from 1 to 5 in there. So in order to create a single link with the ln command, you can only pass one argument to it. But there's something different about creating multiple links, and I'll show you that in a moment. Let's first take a look at the single link case. So ln, you'll probably be creating symbolic links, so for that you need to use the -s flag, and you might also want to use the v flag for verbose, same as with the mv and cp, which will do the same. We'll just show you what the command is doing when you run it. So if I wanted to create a single link, let's say I want to create a link to this file 1 in the current directory. So to do that, I can just simply pass the name of that, the path to that file, and then press enter. And now if I look in the current directory, I have the link to that file there. So if I print out the tree, here is what it looks like. So that's the single link. I could also create multiple links in one go, and I could go like files underscore or files/files underscore star, and that would match all of these file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if I do this, I also need to pass the target. So I need to pass the current directory. So that if I do this, now for the first link it fails because it's the file already exists there. So it does that by default. It won't overwrite anything by default. And it says failed to create symbolic link, and it created the links for the other files. So now we have this there. So if you accidentally forget the target because you're used to like creating a single link and then you never need to pass a target, even though you could, but basically if you do this by accident and you forget to pass the target, it will give you this message, which might be a bit confusing. It will say files, file 5, not a directory. And that's just because it thinks that the file 5 is the target, because that's what you passed. Let's just, this expands to files on file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 is the last one, which is supposed to be the target if there's more than one argument. So it says that it's not a directory, so that's fine. It didn't create any mess, so it just threw an error. And it's probably not that difficult to figure out what happened. But if it was a directory, that last argument, because you can also create links to directories, obviously. So I have this dir's directory for this example, and it contains a bunch of directories instead of files. So if I ran this command on those directories, and I forgot the target, it would actually I mistyped it, so it was supposed to be dir underscore star. So if I run this command, now it will create a mess. It will think that the dir5 is the target, and it will create all the symbolic links in there. So now we have this, and this one is just the one that I made by mistake, so I'll delete that. So now we have this after running this. So and that's because we forgot to pass the target. So if I now pass the target, now the links will go in the current directory, which is what I intended to do. So now we get this, but now there's this mess in the dir5, and sometimes you kind of just don't get what the command does, and then you can just try it again, and then you realize like, oh, I forgot the target, but then you forget to clean that up, and then it might be confusing to see those links there after a while if you don't discover them right away. So kind of just something to be aware of why there might be like some mess that you never meant to create, but so you see there's like extraneous links there. So so all of these kind of cases don't really cause any significant problems, but actually with the ln command you could accidentally lose data, and let me show you how that might happen. So basically let's kind of clean this up a bit. I'll remove all of the dir actually all of these like direct, I'll remove all of these links and this dir's directory with everything that's in it, because we're not gonna need that anymore. Here's like rm-rv, and I prepended it with a space like I showed you before, so that I don't run this command again by accident, because it might delete a lot of information if I recreate the directory for like a different purpose and then accidentally run that command from history. It might cause problems. So that's why I did it like this. But now we only have this here. So we saw this example earlier where I tried to create a bunch of symbolic links, but I already had one in place and it didn't do anything. So it says failed to create symbolic link, it just threw an error and didn't do anything. But there's actually an option with ln which sometimes you might want to use that will remove the existing destination files, but that's not a default, but sometimes you might use it for whatever reason. So if you pass it, it will actually overwrite those files, and it doesn't matter, it won't check if there are links or not. So if I had some actual files there, so let me create some files here instead. That won't do it, I already have something there. So let me first remove file underscore star. So now I don't have any files there. Now I can create some files there. So so now I have this. These are not links, as you can see, because they're not highlighted in the blue color, bright blue color. So now if I run this with this f flag, it will overwrite those files with symbolic links. So this is important to know about, that it will overwrite a file, whatever it is, even if it is not a link. That's one thing. And another thing that I wanted to show you is basically, let me remove those file underscore star links, because we're done with that example. So now we just have this. I'll change directories to the files directory. And so sometimes you like I showed you before, sometimes you might just accidentally forget the target. And right now we have like 5 files in here. So if I forgot the target and I have the F flag set, this actually won't cause any problems, because file 5 is not a directory. But, and this is important, if I didn't have I have like 5 files in here, but if I removed file from 3 to 5, and I only had 2 here, and I ran this command, that would actually expand to file underscore 1, file underscore 2. That will overwrite the file 2 with a symbolic link to file 1. And the reason for that is because there's only 2 arguments, and when that is the case, if the second one points to a file, it assumes that that's just what you want to call the link, and then it just does that. So now I have a symbolic link instead of file 2, and if file 2 was something important, I might erase it in this way. So with the ln command, you also have to be careful, especially when you're using it with this f flag, because it might cause data loss, as you just saw. So I actually remember making mistakes like this and accidentally erasing files because I forgot the target or something like that, and just matched the 2 files, and then accidentally deleted the second one. So that's why I wanted to share it here, so that other people perhaps will be aware of it, and that'll save them that trouble. So yeah, this is basically it for this video. This is what I want to share here. I hope you find this useful, and that it helps you avoid making mistakes when just beginning to learn how to work in the terminal. The terminal is definitely not something to fear, but you have to be careful with what you're doing, and sometimes when you're just beginning, you might run into problems like this. It's always good to have a backup of all the information that you'll be working with. So like, always have a backup copy, so that if you do mess something up, you could restore your data and you won't lose anything important. If you did some important work and you know that it's like, okay, I spent a lot of time on that and I'm gonna be doing some stuff in the terminal, just run the backup and make sure that your files are saved somewhere, so that you know that your files are safe and you can restore them in case you make a mistake. But I hope what I shared in this video will help you set things up in such a way that the chances of that are minimal, and I hope that it helps you to continue learning to work in the terminal in a safe way. So this is it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting and valuable, and I will see you in the next one.